As I say a few words of introduction, we're going to just have something of a slideshow going on. Slideshow or a sideshow, I'm not sure which. And the last thing we looked at, which was Ludwick number 4, we took a trip around the around what had been the railroad yard up in Ludwick once upon a time. And we got to see kind of both sides of it, the western side and the eastern side. On the northern side are the railroad tracks, and the southern side are is Otterman Street. And what my plans are this time is to start to focus on the things that were around the railroad yards, not the railroad yard itself, but the things that were around it. And we're going to do that with the help of old maps and old pictures. We have a lot of old shots, most of which I did myself. I obviously didn't do that one. That was what the transfer and storage looked like, the truck they had. But these shots, that's a really old one there. I think at this point what we should do is just get to a beginning point here. And that involves going over here. And that's where we start. That's 1901. A map or view by T.M. Fowler. This is the railroad, the main line, Pennsylvania Railroad main line going through. And it shows the beginnings of the rail yard in Ludwick. I want to begin by focusing on this area over here. This was Stoke Street, the original entrance to Seton Hill College. Stoke Street coming in here. Right beside that was once a tower, a railroad tower, which was put there to control the interaction of railroad traffic. The Ice and Coal Company, which we saw earlier. This was Struble and Walthour Planing Mill. And down in here was a foundry, a place where molten metal was cast into molds to make things. They were making agricultural machinery. And there was a curtain stretcher factory right here. And out here toward the front on Otterman Street, there was a it was like a sales room. It was where the foundry would sell their products. This is the on-the-ground view, a surveyor's view of what we were just looking at. This is the railroad. This is GU Tower. That's the railroad tower. This is Stoke Street, right here. And this is Foundry Street. It still has that name. And that's why it has that name, because there was a foundry back here. And Potomac Street doesn't have that name anymore. It's called Brown. Brown was the name of a Dr. Brown in town, and he had a plan of lots down at the bottom of that street. And that's where that name came from. This place here, by 1910, became a curtain stretcher factory right out front of the foundry where they were making parts for agricultural machinery. This place became one of the first places in town where you could have your car fixed. They sold gasoline and also did a lot of motor work. They had a machine shop there. Out front here is a building which we'll see a picture of. And that was the place where the agricultural machinery was sold. This mapping is from 1903, and we move on. Surprisingly, I was surprised to find a picture at the Historical Society of the actual foundry. See, it says foundry. This building, definitely not very impressive looking, but in that building was an actual foundry where they poured hot metal into molds to make parts. And these buildings down here or other machine shop. There's another foundry down here. This was an alley that no longer exists. It was kind of wiped out when the railroad was made wider. That building sat there until very recent times. This is Foundry Street going back, and this is West Otterman Street. But that building was once a place where the things that were made back at the foundry, the agricultural machinery, could be displayed and sold. It was a ware room or a sales room. Over the years, it became many other things, and eventually became torn down. This is the curtain stretcher factory. Wagner Curtain Stretcher Factory was back there on what we now know as Brown Avenue. And they made curtain stretchers. And ask your grandmother if you don't know what a curtain stretcher is. We just look at it again to review. This is where the curtain stretchers were made. This is that building that fronted on Otterman Street that I told you was a like a sales room, a place where they sold their things that they made back at the foundry. This is Frank Pifley's outfit. He had a moving company. He moved people around. You know, if you were moving from one place to another, he had a big wagon and horses. And he was up there on Stoke Street also. But that's not where his organization ended up. He ended up over on the other side of the railroad yard. See this building here? That became the storage and transfer building. The old storage and transfer building, it's still there. Frank Pifley had that plot, but he didn't build that building. He sold it to a bunch of other guys who apparently had more money, enough to build that nice old building that I've liked for a long time. In the 70s, I did this. This is an etching. That's the storage and transfer building. That's, of course, the main line. Depot Street over here. This is a building that started out making pianos on Depot Street. This was the Armour meat packing place. And right beside there was a movable crane. I mean, it actually unloaded stuff from trains. That's a photo of it. That's the crane I was talking about. This is the building that began as a piano factory. And we're looking right down Ludwick Street and looking at the old storage and transfer building. Nice old cobblestones. I don't know why they ripped them up. That's the old freight station. And the storage and transfer building, which I have often thought about converting into living, working, and exhibiting space for artists, for people in the arts. I think that'd be a good thing. See, it had maybe still does, an elevator. That's what that thing on top is for, the elevator. We're looking up Depot Street here. That's Ludwick Street. And that's the building I mentioned as having once been a piano factory. That's back in the days when trucks looked like that. I mean, that is a strange looking contraption, but it was a truck owned by the storage and transfer company sitting right beside the freight station. This is a shot I did showing the storage and transfer building, the old station, freight station. It was a rainy day when I was there. This is after the heliport was put in. That's when they ripped up all those nice cobblestones to put in that heliport. This was the storage and transfer building when it was first built, brand new. See all these horses and carriages. These were to carry movables, you know, if people were moving, they had the equipment to do it. And back here, these were the stables and the places where the horses were kept. I one time did a woodcut of the old storage and transfer building, and I see we're at 10 minutes, and I should be quiet and shut this down and say so long until next time. Bye.